welcome. We've done a ton of podcasts together, most of which never aired.
A lot of unaired.
Unaired. This is actually round 2, though. So we had, what was it? 2021. I really didn't know you at all. But Sean was like, yo, you got to talk to Chris. He's the other co-founder of Upspace. I think he had just joined at that time when it was still Upswing.
Yeah, I think you were still in school.
I was still in school. I remember we recorded the podcast episode. I was in my apartment. It was in my room in my apartment. And I went back, and that was the first podcast I had done. I had taken like a little bit of a hiatus while I was training for football. And so I hadn't done a podcast in like a couple months. And I was doing it as a project for my like senior independent study. Because I told my advisor, I was like, yo, there's like no classes here that I want to take. He's like, just do an independent study. And I basically just interviewed people in the health and wellness space and did like a whole report on the episodes that I did. And it was awesome. So you're one of those guys.
And that's where it all started.
That was all started. But our podcast that you and I recorded, I never released it. The audio was all janky. I was a horrible interviewer at that time.
I was probably a horrible interviewee. Hopefully this round will be better.
No, I wouldn't say. I mean, dude, I remember like you just couldn't hear you. I was like, because you didn't have a mic.
It was all audio.
You're very soft spoken anyway, so it's like you just.
It was the equipment and blame it on the equipment.
Yeah, blame it on the equipment. That's all right. So, grateful that we're able to do this now.
Yeah, me too.
It has been, I guess now since that point, almost, or it had been about 2 years. About 2 years since that point. A lot has happened at that point. I had no intention at that point of ever working together. I had never even met you in person. Sean was just like, hey, I'm joining this guy, Chris, and we're going to be building this platform called Upswing, now Upspace. At that point, that was October of 2021. Where were you at in life at that point?
October 2021. So that was almost a year after Upspace, then Upswing it was started. So the whole thing started the summer of 2020. That's where the seed was planted, the idea was planted. And then in April of 2021, that's when Sean and I got together, partnered. So October of later that year, it was still just he and I. We started to kind of get our act together, figure out, or at the time, it felt like we were getting our act together. Looking back, it doesn't feel like that. But we started to build out the technology to a degree. And it looked very different than it does now. The mission's always been the same, but how we were going to achieve it was different. I remember, we had some issues with technology back then. We were working with somebody that we didn't realize it at the time, because you learn a lot of lessons along the way, but they were not equipped for what we needed. Thought they were, because we didn't know any better. And I can remember dealing with that. That was right around that time, before we brought Nico on. Just trying to figure it out,
And you were still just side hustling at this point, right?
Yeah. So I was very close to going full-time. I went full-time January 22.
Yeah, because I joined and you went full-time like right around the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, so that at that point, it was Sean and I were both. Well, I guess Sean was full time. I was still working in employee benefits and then doing Upspace on the side. So that was a crazy time. There was just a lot going on. It was hectic. Still is hectic, but a different kind of hectic.
What was going through your head trying to make that decision? Should I go full time? Should I keep this thing on the side? Is this just a fling, a COVID passion project?
Yeah, no, it never was. It was always, the intention was always to go full time. Like I knew that was happening. It was just a matter of when and how, how we were going to make that work. I am married. I have 2 kids, another on the way. So I wasn't really in a position where I could not, get paid. It's not like I made a ton of money before this or anything like that. So um, it was a matter, like, I just had to figure out how I was going to make that work, and obviously the answer was um, raise money to support Upspace, myself, the rest of the team, figure out how to make it grow. But as far as, it was the easiest decision ever. I knew before Upspace started that I wanted to do something like this full time. So this was almost like, if that's a journey, this was almost the end of that journey, like getting to the full time passion project, arena. That's what I was aiming for. Um, so yeah, and we got there.
So closing one chapter of your life, opening another one.
Yeah, in a sense, for sure.
What does that last page of that last chapter read?
It was a little, so when I was working in employee benefits, I was working with my dad. So that part made it a little bittersweet, out of college, I got into employee benefits. I was working for a separate company. Um, and I did pretty well there. And then my dad brought me on to kind of like basically groom me to take over. He had a small, family business. And that was the intention. And I was like totally grateful for that opportunity, but I never loved, employee benefits. So kind of breaking that to him was tough. It was definitely, a kind of a tough conversation. I felt like I was letting him down and kind of throwing away like this beautiful, gift, beautiful opportunity. But he was nothing but supportive um, throughout the entire thing. I'm sure deep down he would have loved to see me take over. This is like his passion project, it's something that he's grown out of nothing. So it's important to him. So in that sense, it was a little, it was kind of tough, but I knew, and I know that he knew that this was the right thing, that this is what I wanted to do. So yeah, I mean, never looked back really.
So how did the initial concept for Upspace, which again was Upswing, just so everybody was like, we are now officially Upspace, right? It was called Upswing Fitness, and then it was just Upswing.
Well, there was a name before that actually.
Squad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Squad. So Squad, Upswing to now Upspace. Like, what was the whole evolution? How did you even get the idea for it? And what did you hope to accomplish by building it?
Yeah, so I was just hoping to bring people together while they worked out. You know what I mean? This was go back to the summer of 2020. So, COVID hits in March. Everybody has to stay inside. People are like scrubbing packages and doing all kinds of crazy stuff because they're terrified of COVID. And so it's a very lonely time. I had been the whole time, even when I was doing benefits before this, I had been training like friends and family just on the side, personal training. I was just always into it. And I had a group of like my good friends. There were like 7 or 8 of them that we all kind of followed the same program. It was the same thing that I was doing. So like training together, separately but together, like following the same thing. We would talk about it, kind of compete. And when COVID hit, that whole thing just kind of got amplified. And leading up to that point, there was like a group text, but it just became that much more important because everything was so lonely. People were like working out in their basement. So I just wanted a better way to, you'll never like replicate the in-person experience, but I just wanted a way to kind of supplement that and try to bring people together, even when they can't physically be together, and travel along this wellness journey, their wellness journey, whatever that looks like together. Because it is the togetherness, the camaraderie, being with a group or being with even one other person can have such a massive impact on just motivation, morale, camaraderie. And it's just more fun. You know, I don't think anybody on the planet would disagree with that. So, yet so many people struggle with their, you know, their own journeys. Um, and this is just a free thing. Like, hey, just do this with somebody, do this with a group. Um, you're a million times more likely to get where you want to go. So I just wanted to bring that to people somehow. Um, and that's really, that was the mission. That's really never changed. Um, so I scraped together kind of like a prototype with uh, Slack. What else was I using? Oh, Google. I had like a sick Google Sheets where people could input their workouts and
Sick Google Sheets.
everybody like results were showing up on a chart. So there was like a leaderboard kind of. Um, this was back before I knew Notion. So,
Yeah.
but it was cool. So I just scraped together a prototype and everybody kind of got more into it. And that's really where like the idea started to take shape, where I could see it start to form a little bit. And then, you know, started to talk to a bunch of people in the industry, get their take on it. Like, hey, am I missing something? Is there something out there that I'm missing? Is this a bad idea? Is this a good idea? I talked to just like 40 or 50 at that time. It was like trainers. I was just talking to trainers, and everybody had the same problem, you know, like, hey, I'm using this software to train all my clients remotely. It's all it's one to one. So the clients, I can talk to the clients, they can talk to me. They can't talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's siloed, the relationships. And I hate it anyway. It was like, I had to use it because there's nothing else, but I don't really like it. I just kept hearing that conversation over and over again. So that gave me, you know, a little bit of more encouragement to continue down the path. And then, and then it was like, okay, how do we build this? I have no idea. Like, I have a sales background. Like, I don't know technology. And then, you know, like all great first time entrepreneurs, the first thing I wanted to do was make t-shirts. So that's how I ended up with Sean.
Why is that a thing? Why is like, dude? And now
You gotta look good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was just saying. I was like, man, we need some Upspace merch.
We do. Yeah, so that's actually how Sean and I ended up getting together, because he used to do t-shirts.
Right, he had the printing press.
Yeah.
He had the printing press company.
Mm-hmm. He was like, dude, t-shirts, forget about the t-shirts, but let's keep talking about this idea. And then all of a sudden we were together. But yeah, so that's kind of like where it all started.
So I give you a ton of credit because it's I don't necessarily want to say it's easier, but it is easier for Sean and I to go all in on this at, 23 or 22, 23, 24 years old. We don't have a mortgage. We don't have a family. We don't have kids. We don't have anything like that. So it's a time period where we're able to take a little bit more of a risk. And if we fall flat on our face, oh, well, it's time to take risks and try things. And it is what it is. It's a time. That's what your 20s are for. For you being a little bit older, which I always forget too. I always kind of just think we're like the same age. And I'm like, oh yeah, he's got kids. He's got a wife. I was like, and a dog.
A dog.
I was like, I don't have any of that.
Dog's 7 years old.
Dog's 7.
Yeah.
It's your oldest child.
He is.
So, I mean, I just give you a lot of credit for, betting on yourself and taking a risk and doing something that is honorable, that is fulfilling for you, and you're not just doing it for yourself. It's not like you're just building this like get rich quit Ponzi scheme. You're doing something that is going to positively impact the health and the lives of billions of people. What have been some of the more difficult things for you in taking that leap of like from security into the unknown?
It's interesting. It's probably not the things that you would expect. I've always kind of been the kind of person who, one, like I do have a lot of confidence in myself. Not that I know everything or that I'm the best at anything, but that I always figure it out. I just don't stop until I do kind of mentality. Figure out a way, even if it's like I got to figure out a way to figure it out type thing. So I don't really get nervous that like this isn't going to happen. Um, Jesse had sort of talks about like building your life resume.
Mm-hmm.
The just going through the past couple of years and the lessons that I've learned and that we've learned as a team has given me more than like anything else could have. So, and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I think it can be hard for sure on, the family. I have an amazing wife, who has been nothing but supportive, and sometimes it can be tough. Hours can be tough. The unknowns can be tough. Well, we've been lucky. It hasn't been like, actually, there have been times when it's been kind of rocky, but we've always figured it out and we've always pulled through. So yeah, I actually don't get that like stressed out or anxious about it. I don't know if that's a weird thing, but I just have faith in, that we'll figure it out.
Do you think that's a natural trait that you have, like a natural? Because I've seen that in you too. Like you're always just relatively calm, cool, collected. Unlike me, like I can be very emotional, erratic, and the sky is falling type mentality. Sometimes I can be really high, really low.
Yeah.
You've always stayed relatively even keel. Do you think that's a trait that you've always had, or is that something that you've developed over the years?
Yeah, it's funny you ask. Definitely did not always have it. When I was younger, like my friends still laugh about it. I was just a maniac. I mean, probably up until like halfway through high school. I was insanely competitive, which I still am, but I like tone it down. You can't really tell.
No, you gamify everything.
But I was like getting into fights on like the schoolyard in grade school just over nothing but like, we're playing football and
that's so hard to see.
Calling me, out of bounds. I wasn't out of bounds. Or even like I would just get mad because like, we lost or something. I was a hothead. I remember one time, I forget what happened. Probably something so not a big deal. And I just took the football and I threw it on the roof of the school. It's like, I'm mad. Nobody can play. So I was a high.
Oh, you're that guy. This is the worst kind of kids.
The worst. Very high energy. Like I had some teachers who loved me if I liked their class, and then some who hated me. Like we did not get along at all. And actually coaches were like that too. So no, it was definitely a journey to get here. I think I was very short-tempered. I was a hothead. And then I don't know, I think something, I started to mellow out a little bit in high school. And honestly, like, sometimes I miss that drive every once in a while. I wouldn't say drive, but,
you feel like you've lost that fire in you?
No, but, I'm much more of a thinker, Sometimes it's not a bad thing to let the emotion loose, I think when you look at characteristics, there aren't good ones or bad ones. There's just like healthy and unhealthy ways to express them, So, yeah. But it's definitely been a learned thing over time that I've had to kind of, I guess, work on. So,
what are some of the factors that you think have contributed to that?
I think I had to figure it out. I was just running into a lot of issues, like, people like getting in. It's not good at getting fights with your friends. I was pretty good. I keeping my temper in check for the most part, playing hockey, So I wasn't a guy that was like getting penalties left and right. But yeah, I don't know. I guess at one point I just realized like, hey, this isn't serving me. I need to figure out how to rein it in a little bit. So I just started working on it.
Yeah. So you have an interesting background too, is where you were diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic as well, right? So how old were you when that happened?
I was 17.
17. So is that relatively late to be diagnosed?
Yeah. So type 1 diabetes also used to be called juvenile diabetes. You typically get it when you're younger. 17 is relatively old. Yeah, for sure. Actually, the anniversary is coming up. It was the day after Thanksgiving that I was diagnosed. It's Thanksgiving week. Now that I think about it. So
too much apple pie.
Too much everything that night, I guess.
Diabetes. But when you got diagnosed, was there anything that you could kind of piece back throughout your childhood that was like, oh, maybe that was a result of like I don't know what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes, right? So like, what was when you got diagnosed? Like what was? How did they find it? Do they know? Like, were you living with it your whole life? Did you develop it over time? Like how does it even work?
Yeah, so with type 1, it can be genetic. Nobody in my family has it. There's really not that much they know about it. Doctors just say that it was a virus. Like some virus got in, attacked, my immune system, or basically attacked my pancreas. It's an autoimmune disease. So something got in, caused my immune system to attack my pancreas, and stopped producing insulin. So, at the time, I didn't realize it, but I had lost like 15 pounds over a month or so. Again, it was around Thanksgiving. I played hockey my whole life, so we had a Thanksgiving tournament coming up like that Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I'll never forget, like, my dad was a coach. He was always like my biggest fan. And in practice that week, I think coming home from a practice, he was like, dude, you sucked tonight. Like, is everything all right? You got to figure it out. And I was just like, I don't feel good. Like, I feel so slow and awful. So we thought we had mono. So I went to the doctor, and they took some tests, and they were like, yo, you need to get to the hospital right now. You definitely have type 1 diabetes. So I drove down to the hospital and spent a couple of days there, just like getting my blood sugar back to normal, basically teaching me how to manage it, learning about counting carbs and all that stuff. Yeah.
So that's interesting, because I know you go to relatively like lower carb, but then sometimes I'll see you crush just like tons of bananas on like a given day, right? So I know you've mentioned like having a lot more of a lower carb diet, eating a higher fat diet, but then and how that benefits you, but also like when your blood sugar drops, obviously you're not gonna reach for like some beef jerky. You're gonna go for like I had a friend who, growing up, he had type 1 diabetes, so he would always like Smarties were his thing. Yeah. So he would just always have
Starburst for mine.
Starburst.
Which, like, looking back, it blows my mind.
The pink ones?
The doctors are telling you to do, but
the pink ones.
Oh, yeah, the Favor Reds. Yeah, they're great.
They were great. Yeah. But so, yeah, what did they tell you about changing your diet, and how did that kind of change how you looked at food and lifestyle from there?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, the education beyond basically the math, like, hey, if you eat this many carbs, you need this much insulin, is very average. I hope it's gotten better over the past 16 years or however long.
So is it like if you eat more carbs, you have to give yourself more insulin? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Why is that?
So your insulin basically regulates your blood sugar levels. Mm-hmm. So you eat carbs, your blood sugar is going to go up. Insulin counteracts it, brings it back down to normal levels. Right. So like your pancreas does that automatically.
Shoots out insulin.
Yeah, a healthy person.
Your pancreas.
Right. Okay. So I basically just had to do that manually.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, I mean my diet now, I try to keep it relatively low carb, but use carbs for, like for fuel, or if I need them because my sugar is going low for whatever reason. So yeah, I end up eating a ton of bananas, like before a workout, after a workout. That's like my go-to for sure. I'll have a banana right before I work out just to make sure that my sugar doesn't go low while I exercise. Exercise will basically increase your insulin sensitivity. So, could cause me to go low. So I'll crush a banana right before, or right after, if it's again causing me to go low after the workout. I have learned over the years, like, simpler is better. Even just put aside nutrition and the benefits of low carb for a normal person. Like anything, like the simpler the better for me. The less variables in play, the easier it is to manage. So if I eat less carbs, less chance of going high, less chance of taking too much insulin and going low. It just is easier. It's just what I've learned, over the years. So to me, it's worth it. And then obviously there's health benefits to eating a low carb diet also.
So I know you've always been active. You said you were a hothead, very competitive.
Yeah.
Played a lot of hockey, did all the things. What did being diagnosed with type 1 teach you about health and fitness that was a little bit different than just playing sports?
Yeah, no, that's where the whole journey started, really. Prior to that, I guess I was into working out like the same way that any high school kid would be, I wanted to get better at hockey. You want to look good, you want to run fast, all that stuff. But once I realized the effect that exercise had on my blood sugar levels, I was hooked. Number one. Number two, I kind of had the benefit of like immediate feedback, through my blood sugar levels that other people don't get. So I could see literally every day, if I didn't work out on a certain day, my blood sugar would be high. So I was just getting immediate feedback, and I saw how important it was to staying healthy. So it just became a part of my routine, and then I just kind of became obsessed with it. And my brain works through like systems. I'm very systems oriented.
No.
So so I became obsessed with programming. That was the next thing. This was like late junior, senior year of high school and then college. So just started learning about all the different, ways to strength train and periodization, like all the basic stuff that we know now was like fascinating to me. And then later on got into like triathlon and training for all that stuff. I just became obsessed with like, this is point A. This is what we have to work with. What can we put together to get somebody or to get myself to point B? Like, what does that look like? How can we do it as efficiently as possible? I was just like obsessed with that.
Did the doctors give you any limitations or discrepancies or anything when you were diagnosed of like, hey, this is what life looks like for you now? Or was it very much just like, hey, you can do everything that you were doing beforehand and everything you want to do? This is just something you have to take extra precaution with? Like, what was that like?
Yeah. So at first, short term, they say, hey, stop everything. And we're kind of wean you back into normal life. So I stopped playing hockey for, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks, just as I kind of like learned how to handle things. Started with practice, figure out how that would affect my blood sugar. I remember like the first time I practiced, I just immediately went low, because I was back on the ice. But long term, you could do anything. There are no restrictions. It's just a matter of learning how to manage it. So yeah, in that sense, I can do anything.
Are there still things you're learning throughout your life that come from this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always learning about nutrition, the way that things impact my blood sugar levels, um, not just nutrition, but other things. Obviously exercise is a big one, um, but also sleep, stress, um, the different macros, not just carbs. Like eating carbs with fat, eating carbs with protein, the order in which things are eaten, which we've talked about before.
Shout out to the glucose goddess.
Yeah, things like that. There's always a lot to learn. So yeah, I'm totally still learning just within that realm.
I'm curious, do you have role models or people that you have looked up to in your pursuits or on your journey? And if you do, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned and applied to your life, being a father, being a CEO, being an athlete, all areas of your life?
Yeah. Yeah. So the first role model that I've ever had was definitely my dad. He had a huge impact on my work ethic, just kind of like the grinder attitude. I think we're very similar in a lot of ways. We're also very different in a lot of ways. But yeah, the work ethic, and the kind of like, hey, these are the cards, figure it out mentality, came from him for sure. So he's definitely the first role model that I would think of. And then after that, I've always been a huge fan of Jesse Itzler, which ever since I read Living with a Seal years ago. But just his similar attitude, but totally different at the same time. He just gets after it. Like whatever fires him up, he just goes for it. And he just figures out a way, so that like kind of no excuses, no quit mentality, I've always just resonated with for sure. Not to mention like now he's obviously doing a lot more speaking. He's an incredible speaker, incredible with messaging. So he's probably the second guy that comes to mind. And then there's a million others, you could list off, but
Jesse's a good dude.
Yeah.
I definitely take a lot away from him too. Not only from like a business standpoint, but also just like you said, building your life resume.
Yeah.
Like what fires you up? Go after it. Build these events. Bring people together. Empower people. But also, I'll never forget the one time I was on a Zoom call with him when I was like still doing stuff with ProMix, and he was like, "Hey guys, like it was great to chat with you guys. But, like I got to go to my kid's swim meet. You know, like just he's that kind of guy. So that kind of just I'm curious, just from watching you as a father. Like there's even like we're in Malibu, like one of those beautiful places in the world, and like you're just like, man, I can't wait to go see my kids, right? And like I love that. Like that just I don't have kids, so I can't relate to that or know what that feels like. So, what has been the dynamic between building the business, but then also building your family?
Yeah. They're kind of similar in some ways. It's definitely been a learning process too. I mean, all of this has been happening at the same time. Like Grace, my oldest, she's 4. She was 6 months old, like when COVID hit, so basically, about a year old when Upspace incorporated. Since then we had James, who's about to turn 2. So been kind of learning how to be a dad at the same time. So, learning how to be a CEO. And definitely made a lot of mistakes along the way. The good part about being a founder is I can kind of dictate my routine, my schedule. And I know what's important to me, and I'm able to put those things first, so time in the morning, like basically breakfast time and then dinner time, almost always together, just because it's very important to me that that I'm there for that, to be with them and then to help Kelly. You know, when Upspace started, she was working, and then she quit kind of partly because she wanted to. You know, she's always wanted to be home, but also to give me more time with Upspace. When we were both working, like one of us had to do drop off, one of us had to do pickup, and it was very disruptive to like the workday. So she, you know, even though she wanted to, it was also a sacrifice, because being home with them, raising two kids is hard. I know that it's definitely harder than what I do. I could tell, you could see it. So, you know, grateful for that. But yeah, they're similar. And it's been challenging trying to figure out how to mesh everything together, mix everything together. But I think you just got to stick with what's important. You know, like I said, like I know the things that are important to me, and they come first, above, you know, before everything else. And so far, it's been a pretty good formula.
What are the factors that go into having a flourishing relationship like that? Because I know it can't be easy at all times when you are trying to build this business. Kelly's home with the kids and the dog. Also, you know, she's pregnant. And you guys are just, what I admire about you guys is just like you always make it work. And I admire how intentional you are with everything you do. What do you think has been the biggest key factors for you and her to just build this thriving relationship?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is really just empathy, you know, to put a word to it. Just understanding what the other person's going through, what their day was like or could have been like, what their week's like, what they have to handle. And I'm definitely not perfect, you know, for sure. Make mistakes along the way. But, you know, if you're going to get mad about something, or if I'm frustrated because I had to come home early, or it felt early, you know, and I wanted to finish something, it's literally just taking half a second and just thinking about what her day was like. And like, even if she had a great day with the kids, it's still tiring. You know, it's still very tiring. She's kind of ready to move on to the next phase of starting dinner or shutting it down, getting ready for bed. Like, you know, so just stepping back and thinking about it from her, you know, from her perspective a little bit. And then just kind of giving grace and giving her the benefit of the doubt. Instead of, I think it's funny, like we have a tendency to hold our own family to like higher standards than we would strangers, you know, and like doubt their intentions more than we would strangers, which is like totally backwards.
Yeah, right.
That just comes with, you know, being part of a family.
Yeah.
So reversing that and just giving her the benefit of the doubt all the time, instead of like planting these seeds in your mind, like, oh, that was, you know, that was intentional, or she's just being lazy, or whatever it is, you know, always giving her the benefit of the doubt, which I'm not saying I'm perfect at that either. But those two things, you know, empathy and benefit of the doubt, definitely will take you very far.
You know, I feel like we as a society, we learn a lot through our mistakes, and I've definitely made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm sure you have as well. And then when you look back and reflect on things, like, man, like how would I approach things differently? And I've seen that in the way that you operate as a CEO. It's kind of like, all right, well, what can we learn from this, you know, mistake, quote unquote, that we made, and how do we make sure that doesn't happen again when we move forward? So, what is your favorite mistake that you've made over the past 3 years now building this business, and how has that changed the trajectory of how you look at building this thing?
That's a good question. My favorite mistake. I mean, there have been so many along the way. I don't even look at them like mistakes. It's more, everything we do, it's just experiments.
Right. It's a lesson.
We hypothesize, we have a theory, we think that we know better than everybody else, and we go test it, and sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we have to tweak things. But man, that's a good question. I think so the first thing that comes to mind wasn't necessarily a mistake that the lesson was like immediately apparent, but without getting into it, we made the mistake of kind of trusting somebody and taking them at their word, let's just say. And that resulted in a potentially kind of like a potentially crappy situation for the team. And it would have been very easy for the the team, us five, to have crumbled or not handled it well. Basically just going through adversity. And what I learned from that is, one, we have a great team, who we all banded together and showed a lot of character and a lot of heart and a lot of grit through that adversity. And two, it just taught me, like, hey, personnel, the people that you surround yourself with, and you hear that all the time, from a personal perspective, but from a professional perspective, it's just as important. The people that we work with, that we bring on, that we choose to bring into the Upspace family, especially early on, it's so important. And the character of these people, and the way that they think and they behave and they treat other people, is so much more important than like the skills that they have. So that has been a very key lesson, learning, bringing only the best for Upspace.
Love that. What do you think are the factors that go into building a high quality team?
I think you need divergent thinkers, people who think differently, differently from like the status quo, but differently from each other too. So like, for instance, Sean and I, we think very differently. He could live in like the kind of like the visionary theoretical realm forever and get from A to B to C to D to E to F, like, like that. Like, it's super easy for him. Whereas like we get to A and I'm like, okay, we need to cover all of these details before we can get to B. We got to talk through these things. I'm much more detail oriented, much more process oriented, but if everybody was like me, we wouldn't get anywhere. If everybody was like Sean, we wouldn't get anywhere, and you kind of fall in between those two.
I'm like, let's start at K and then like jump back to C and then we'll go to Q.
So, and I think that's important. Again, going back to like, the character thing is obviously hugely important. But then people that can communicate. You can have the smartest people in the world who are really good at what they do, but if they can't communicate well, it's like, it's useless almost. Communicate with each other. Customers, if you're customer facing, company communicate with people below them, people above them, within their specific skill set and outside of it. Like if you can't communicate well, advocate for yourself, like your ideas, and then also respect other people's ideas and have like constructive conversations, because we as a team have a lot of conversations about strategy, um, and about what we should do, and
Simplify and execute.
yeah. Oh, that's what it all comes down to. But in terms of figuring out what that simple next thing to do is, we have a lot of conversations around strategy, and I feel like everyone is very good at communicating their thoughts and their beliefs and their perspectives and respecting other people's at the same time. Um, every single time we go into a conversation that turns into an argument, almost always, we almost, no, we always come out with not a compromise, but like a solution that neither side presented that's better than either of the first two options, pretty much every time, which is cool. And I think that's how it basically how a startup needs to act if they want to survive, because you have to create something incredible, and that just doesn't happen from one individual's brain. So being able to like have those conversations is absolutely key.
How have you continued to hone your craft and evolve as a leader?
Yeah, it's been hard. I'm still learning a lot, how to do it. Different challenges come up with different phases, throughout the whole process. Um, I like to be very hands-on and to do things. So it was hard learning how to like take a step back and let other people do things. I think I've recently gotten better at that. Um, so that's one thing that I think I've kind of overcome, but there's definitely more, like right now, I'm a very, I'm kind of a more agreeable person, let's just say. Um, and I'm very open-minded. Um, so one thing that I'm struggling with now is, um, basically being more, basically just being harder on people, you know? And that may sound bad, but I think you get it.
I totally
You're on
get
the
it.
team.
I was like, dude, I
Like
was
when
like, I need
people,
you to call me out more. Like,
yeah, yeah. Which is just something that something I got to get used to, you know? So it's every day is a learning. It's an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to learn. Um, so I do come into pretty much every day, every week, very intentional about like, hey, what am I working on as a leader this week? I actually have a system. No, you'd be surprised to know that where I kind of like, there are things that are important to me that I kind of track and measure myself on.
What are some of those things that you track?
I mean, the first thing I look at is like, was Dom successful this week? Was Sean successful? Was Wes successful? Was Jace successful? Was Arslan successful? So if the answers there aren't yes, then that's not good. So that stuff. Does everybody understand the mission? Is it super clear? Does everybody have what they need? If not, why? And then it's like, what tough conversations did I need to have? Did I have them? Did I avoid them? If so, why? Things like that. So,
what do you think is the most valuable skill that you've developed building Upspace over the past few years?
a few come to mind. But I think the most valuable one is again, I would probably come back to empathy. But in the sense that, again, going back to these, having tough conversations around strategy and direction and what we're going to do. Um, you may not think this like during the conversations, but like, in my mind, I might be getting heated, you know. I don't want to lose the argument, so to speak. I think like, early on, um, at times it's more about being right than just about finding the best solution. Um, so, and that was kind of emphasized because I was like the number one guy, like the kind of the first, I was the founder.
Mm-hmm.
So it bothered me when like I didn't have all the answers. Or people challenged my answers. So learning to, as a leader, still be, you want to be strong enough so that you have that kind of that strong leadership presence, but at the same time be open-minded, let other people voice their opinions, be able to step back and be like, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. That's a much better way to do it. So just learning how to find that balance, because you don't want to at the same time, you don't want to just be, you don't want to be a pushover either. You got to be a strong presence, but you want to be open-minded. So, it's kind of a dichotomy of leadership. That's what Jocko would call it. One of the dichotomies, of leadership.
I was waiting for a Jocko quote at some point.
Yeah, I love paradoxes, as you know, and that's one of them. Kind of finding that balance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably been a big one, but there've been a lot.
So our mission at Upspace is to, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because we just did a whole bunch of branding stuff, to radically boost the health, happiness, and love of the human race and make healthy a lifestyle. Health, happiness, and love. Why do you think those three things are so important, and what is the role that they play in making healthy a lifestyle?
Yeah, so first of all, they're all interconnected. Health is
triangle.
Yeah,
symphony.
Health is mental and physical. So we're not just talking about physical health. Your brain needs to be healthy. Your body needs to be healthy. And that includes being happy. Somebody who is chronically depressed or anxious or stressed out, probably not healthy mentally or physically, and they're not happy. So the three are, they're 3 points of a triangle. You need to have all three. I think you need to have all three to live a fulfilling life. Love is arguably the most important thing, because I think if you have an abundance of love, you're going to be happy. And then at least you're mentally, you can be healthy. Physically, you can still be unhealthy, but that's really what everybody wants at the end of the day. Health, happiness, and love. And it's not just those things. Within that, finding purpose, fulfillment, community, camaraderie, like all of those things are important. But at the end of the day, you want those things to be happy and to be loved and to love. And you can't do either of those things if you're not healthy.
This is true.
Yeah.
Health is that bucket that pours into everything else.
Yeah. And we want to make healthy a lifestyle, because it's not for so many people.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that, it's one of those things that's very hard and very easy at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
we don't want it to be this chore, this thing where it's like, oh, we don't want people on January 1st to be like, my New Year's resolution is to get into the gym. Because then it's like a hard thing. It's something that they have to strive to do. We just want people to do it. The same way that, people are the same way that people brush their teeth.
Dude, I was literally just saying that. It's literally just
it's just part of the routine,
part of what you do. Right? It's a non-negotiable.
It could be going to the gym for 2 hours. It could also be, meditating for 10 minutes once a day. If that becomes part of your lifestyle, then that's a win. It could be eating healthier. Like, eating healthier is a very intentional thing for a lot of people. And I think it has to be to start, but eventually you just want it to be your lifestyle, so it's second nature. You know what to buy at the grocery store. You know what to order when you're eating out. It doesn't have to be this thing that you have to try out anymore. That's ultimately what we're striving for. And for sure, it takes a lot of effort and at the start, intentionality. And you're basically forming habits. Now, just going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, it's a lot easier to do that when you do it with people.
Right. What gives you the most hope for humanity?
Humans themselves. If you go down the wrong paths on social media or the news or whatever, you can lose a lot of faith in humanity. I actually haven't been on social media for a while, and it wasn't intentional.
Okay, so we'll skip the part at the end where I say, where can people connect with you? Because you're not anywhere.
Yeah, and even if you there's no point in following me. Anyway. I'm not a creator. No, but you could DM me, I guess. I probably won't.
I'm just gonna put your phone number in there.
Yeah, or just get on Upspace. You can DM me.
Just get on Upspace. Get in the what's your group
The Foundation.
Called? Yeah. The Foundation. Yeah. That's right.
No, but humans. The everyday person. It's very easy to go on these platforms and to see all of these polarizing figures, but the average person just wants what we were just talking about, health, happiness, and love. And even though it may not seem like it, that's 99% of the people on this earth. Mm-hmm. That's what they want.
Yeah.
And they're good people. So yeah, humans give me faith in humanity.
If you were to fast forward your life 20 years from now, put yourself in the shoes of who you are then.
I mean, pretty old, 53.
You're right. Prime. You're in your prime. Joe Rogan's like 56. He's still getting after it. Don't worry about it. Yeah. What is one thing that you would want to look back on at this period in your life, this version of you, assuming that you've accomplished everything you've wanted to in the next 20 years? What piece of advice would you tell yourself right now?
That's hard. There's a lot of things, a lot of directions come to mind. I mean, a couple of things come to mind. First is just, enjoy it, obviously, be present. But that's kind of that's a no-brainer.
Hey,
enjoy it. So
depends who you're talking to.
Think of something better than that.
Depends who you're talking to.
For where I am right now, no, I'm gonna stick with that. Actually, I think that's meaningful. Where I am right now in my life, just enjoy the journey. I think it's easy to kind of like be looking for the next step, the next thing, like, Kelly and I, we've been talking about moving somewhere, whether it's a different house, different city, this, that, like for the past months. And it's easy to kind of get caught up in like the next thing.
Mm.
Um, so I think it's good to remind myself, like, hey, dude, there's no rush.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get this time back.
Yeah.
Even if it feels like it's not what you want right now, it's still pretty good.
Sure.
You know, and you can make it what you want. It's all mental.
Mm.
You know, so that's what I would say.
Whew. That's good. That's good. Dude, I just want to, first off, I got 2 more quick questions for you, but I just wanted to acknowledge you and truly just tell you how appreciative I am of you and how grateful I am for you. If I don't say it enough, I've always seen you as the big brother that I've never had. And I go to you because I know that you'll always be there to listen. You'll drop what you're doing to help me with whatever I need. You've taken hours upon hours out of your day to literally help me figure out how to get my shit together, how to plan my days. So I just want to tell you, like, truly how appreciative I am of you. And it's just an honor to be building Upspace with you and literally creating a cultural movement. If you were to give an elevator pitch to somebody listening, like what Upspace is and why they should not just download an app, but why should they like join in this mission with us?
Well, first of all, before we get to that, thank you, and I appreciate you immensely. It's been fun watching your journey. Like you said, you came on January of 2022, so we're almost 2 years in.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And just watching you grow, not as a person, because I think your values and character have always been there. You didn't need a whole lot of work there, but just as just like coming to your own, it's been awesome watching you. You've been so true to yourself and what you want. Surrounding yourself with the people that you want to be around, who are all amazing people. Just getting after it, getting out there, moving, to Austin because that's what you wanted. It's been amazing watching that. So, and I'm lucky to have you, on the team and as a friend.
Thank you,
As
brother.
a good friend. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
And then as far as an elevator pitch, as to why people should get on Upspace.
Why they should, like I said, we're not just building an app, right? We're creating this cultural movement, and we believe that the power of community is going to empower people to have more health, happiness, and love in their life and live a healthier life, ultimately create a better society. When you think about, when you talk to people, like, it's not just like, hey, download our app, but it's like, join in this mission. Why are you so passionate about that? Like, why should people, if you're trying to sell this mission, this vision to get people on board, you're saying like, hey, we're all leaving Earth, we're climbing under this ship, and we're going to this new society, this new planet where it's filled with health, happiness, love. People are living healthy lifestyles. We're taking people from here and we're going to there. Why should they get on that ship?
I mean, a lot of reasons. So to put it into to one reason, man, they won't regret it. No, I mean, it's I just going back to the community thing, I truly believe wholeheartedly that we're at a turning point. people who want to be a part of them. It's going to be a lot of fun.
No doubt. Dude, this was epic. This was so much fun. I'm so glad we finally get to do this spontaneously. In fact, we've been in multiple states together in the past couple of weeks.
Flew cross country.
A couple
days ago.
Days ago. So I'm really excited for the future and what we're continuing to build, and just, our friendship, our relationship is something that I value tremendously. And I really am so grateful for all the time we get to spend together, even just being here together. Both of us just kind of head down working on our collective things.
It's fun when you guys are in the office.
It's always good to be back. But as you know, this is called the Pure Ambition Podcast, and I like to ask all my guests at the end, when you hear those two words, pure ambition, what comes to mind? What does it mean to you? How does it apply to your daily life?
Yeah, I think it's alignment, and just getting after what you care about at the end of the day. And it doesn't really matter what that thing is, whatever's important to you, because everybody has something that's important to them.
Mm-hmm.
And too many people don't go after that, whatever that is, and it doesn't have to be a career. It doesn't have to be a fitness goal. It could be a better relationship with your parents. If that's important to you, just get after it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. That's what that means.
That's a good mic drop moment right there. I'm going to skip the last question, which is, where can people find you and connect with you? What is your call to action? Where, if people do want to connect with you, but if they do want to download Upspace, what is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, download Upspace or DM Dom, and he'll let me know. No,
I'll leak your email.
It's funny. A couple days ago, I re-downloaded Instagram, and I can already tell I'm on it too much, so I'll probably delete it soon. But in the meantime, you can DM me there, because I'm on there periodically, and that's just Chris_Putsch, Putsch.
Let's go. Yeah. Well, you got to get on, because I'm going to make you re-download it just to accept the collaboration for this post.
There you go. So we'll do that. You can catch me before I delete it again.
All right, bro. Thank you for this. This is amazing. I got a lot of love for you, and I'm excited for the future.
Yeah, me too, man.
Thanks, brother. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. I wanted to give you all a heads up too that I launched a free community on the Upspace app where you can join, ask me questions, connect with like-minded individuals, follow my 4-week running and strength training program that has some dedicated mobility sessions in there as well, so that we can all optimize our health and fitness together. So if you're interested, head over to the App Store, download the Upspace app, and join the Pure Ambition community today. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.